Texe Mars is the president of Power of Prophecy Ministries and Rivercrest Publishing in Austin, Texas. He's a frequent guest on radio and TV talk shows throughout the USA and Canada, discussing topics such as Bible prophecy, secret societies, politics, and world affairs. His latest book is the highly acclaimed, I hope I pronounce this right, Codex Magica. In addition to his many books, Texe Mars has produced over 20 best-selling video documentaries, including Gulag USA, and that is an excellent documentary, and that came out before many of the Alex Jones documentaries about the camps, and that's important to realize that some of this stuff has been talked about for years, and Texe Mars is a veteran in that particular area. He's been looking at this stuff for multiple decades. He has a monthly newsletter. It's distributed to tens of thousands of subscribers around the world, and he has a shortwave radio show called Power of Prophecy, and it's beamed to over 125 nations via shortwave, of course, around the globe. Good to speak again, Texe.
Hey, Alex, it's great to be with you and the entire Portland, Oregon area. I guess other than Austin, where I live here in central Texas, Portland has to be my second most favorite city in the world, I'll tell you.
Yes, it's definitely a unique city, just like Austin. They're both unique cities in their own right. I want to ask you briefly, give us a background into your radio show and what you've been investigating the last several decades.
Well, of course, we've been looking at this conspiracy, and I always have to laugh at those who talk about conspiracy theorists, because we're really moving very fast, and we have been for a number of decades, into what I call the age of propaganda. I mean, it really is a big brother era, and the theorists work for the government. They work for the institutions of corporations, and they put out such preposterous information, just as, when you read 1984 by George Orwell. So what we have to do, Alex, is to correct the misimpressions, the lies, the exaggerations of our own big brother government, and we have to tell people the truth, because, the government is steadily telling people they must love Big Brother, and, people like Alex Ansary and Texe Mars are saying, no, just love the truth. And this is really the thing. I think this is the truth movement, and right now there's an incredible movement by the liars to make us believe that we have moved into what they would call a new reality. And this is what I'm really fighting at this time, a new reality in which they say we're being straitjacketed by scarcity. We don't have enough oil. There's oil shortages. Water shortages are already on the horizon, and pretty soon water scarcity will be crushing all of us. There's food shortages. Of course, then there's the danger of so-called terrorism and the nuclear bombs and mushroom clouds and climate change and global warming. In every stage, they're hitting us just with the double barrel. These fears, these fearmongers are exploiting their lies, and they're attempting to batter each of us into submission. And many people are falling for it. But what I want people to know tonight, and I'm willing to prove it, because I don't think anything should be said that's not so. Again, this is the truth movement, Alex. I'm willing to prove that there is an age of plenty at hand. We've never had so much oil in the history of the world as is available now. This is a world awash in oil. There's so much water. There's so much food. The warehouses are brimming with food. This is an age of plenty. Do not believe the big brother liars.
Texe, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I've just built this up slowly. I hear this stuff over and over and over and over again out of people's mouths. We just need less people. Not enough talk about living differently or more independently or off the land. No, it's just we just need less people. And I'll talk to people about National Memorandum 200, written by Henry Kissinger, where he talked about depopulating the planet. This was back in 1974. We have other documents as well. Zbigniew Brzezinski, National Memorandum 64. And then when you get Texe, for them to admit that something sinister could be going on with this scarcity issue or bioweapons, they respond by saying, and I'm talking text for some members of the audience, by the way, hey, there's just too many people. So the question, Texe, is almost a question of morality. Do we, as Americans or Westerners or the greater Caucasian white world, have the right to determine who gets to live and who gets to die? And are those people that admit, yes, we need less people, so I'm going to look the other way when it comes to this bioweapon research, how are they not how are they not like the Nazis? Or how are they not like the people that allowed the Nazis to get into power based on the sophistication of the propaganda?
Well, first of all, when you get to the George W. Bushes, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and the others today, the Schwarzeneggers, and so on, actually they're quite a bit different than Hitler, because these people are much bigger thinkers. I mean, you know, how many ever Hitler killed, or Stalin, who killed 66 million, Stalin and Lenin, the communist Zionist, and Russia and the Soviet Union. That was nothing. That was such a small number that the communists put to death. I mean, Ted Turner wants to kill 5.5 billion people. He says the global population should be no more than 500 million. That means, well, since we have 6.5 billion people, he wants to exterminate 6 billion. So really, Hitler and Stalin and Lenin were very small thinkers compared to a Ted Turner or a Hillary Clinton or even a John McCain, who sees nothing wrong with having a war. I suppose that's to help depopulate the world too. We'll have a war in Iraq and Iran for the next 100 years. Listen to me very carefully. All the people on the face of planet Earth can be placed in the state of Texas. I live in Texas, and when I drive from my home in Central Texas and Austin, Texas, I can drive 1,000 miles, in fact, from the tip of Texas down in Brownsville up to Lubbock, Amarillo, and 98% of the time I can see nobody. There's nothing but plains. There's nobody there. It's unpopulated. I'm trying to tell people, drive from Austin to El Paso. In fact, take a drive from Austin, Texas, 1,500 miles to Los Angeles, California, and 1,400 miles of the way there's nobody there. This is an absolute fictitious lie.
Yes.
The world it does not, listen, the fact is the world is not overpopulated, and it is awash with oil. It has plenty of water, and as far as food goes, nations 20 or 30 years ago that could not feed themselves. For example, I'm looking at an article here, commodityonline.com, March 28, 2008. India's food grain production at record high. Now, of course, we have some pockets of problems. When you have Burma that's had a cyclone hit, well, naturally, that's a horrible emergency, and I believe that as Christian people, as good people, we should help that country. But basically, Burma was exporting rice to other countries before this hit. Everybody has plenty. China now has all kinds of food that they didn't have. One of the reasons why is because, now let me mention this to you. You know, 20 years ago, farmers were having a real problem in America, small farmers. Well, they're all gone, and let me tell you why all the small farmers are gone. Agribusiness corporations bought up everything, and the price of farmland is up tenfold in 20 years. If you wanted to be a rich man, what you should have done was invested in farmland 20 years ago. Now, Alex, let me ask you to use your common sense. If the price of farmland has gone up tenfold, and in fact, in the last 5 years alone, it's tripled in price, do you think that these agribusiness corporations, Monsanto, Dow, Archer, Midland, Daniels, Do you think that they're buying up all of this farmland because it's of no value? No, this is valuable stuff. Why is it valuable stuff? Because they had planned to drive the price of food up, and they're doing it just like oil. I mean, imagine, since President Bush took office, we've had a tripling of the price of oil. At the same time, we're discovering new sources, oil fields everywhere. Did you know that Brazil, the nation of Brazil, has just found a huge oil discovery in the Atlantic Ocean off their coast? And there's twice as much oil. This is the Petroleum Brazil. Look it up, Petrobras. Go to Google. You'll find that they have discovered more oil there in that one field than exists in the entire United States. Meanwhile, in two fields, the Jack field and it's called the Thunder Horse field in the Gulf of Mexico, we have now discovered enough oil, the oil companies have, to take care of America's petroleum, gas, and energy needs for over 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Alex, here's another example. I have a newspaper clipping right here in my files, okay? It's from 8 years ago. It says that America has enough oil in the oil shale and the oil sands of Utah and Colorado to meet our energy needs of our nation alone, the United States, for 500 years. But the problem, they say, is it costs a lot to go down and get it, right? Mm-hmm. It's difficult because of the shale and the sands and everything. But they said at that time 8 years ago that if the price of a barrel of oil goes up to $60 a barrel, it will be economically feasible then. Now, Alex, how much is a barrel of oil now today?
It is 126, and let me make a couple, at least mention a couple brief headlines. Bankers move us one step closer to $200 a barrel in oil. J.P. Morgan Chase and Company announced plan to trade oil by end of 2008. And in addition to that, a report by Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated earlier this month forecasts that oil prices would reach $150 to $200 a barrel within 2 years, a figure that is in line with the goal of the Bilderberg Group, plan to squeeze the middle class and lower the living standards of Westerners, because back in 2005, oil was $40 a barrel. And Henry Kissinger told his fellow attendees that the elite had resolved to ensure that oil prices would double over the course of the next 12 to 24 months, which is exactly what happened. During their 2006 meeting in Ottawa, Canada, Bilderberg agreed to push for $105 a barrel before the end of the year, before the end of 2008. So now at 126, we have already surpassed that.
Okay, but so now we were told 8 years ago, if the price of a barrel of oil went up to $60 a barrel, we would have enough oil in Colorado and Utah alone to meet our needs for 500 years. Now it's over double that. So, and by the way, a recent find, a discovery in the Bakken, Bakken, oil find in North and South Dakota, of all places, means that America now has more oil than we could possibly ever use as a nation in North and South Dakota, and they haven't even produced one oil barrel there yet, but they found the oil. Meanwhile, we're not the only country. In China, in a place called Bohai Bay, they just discovered oil there. They've got 7 billion barrels. The Caspian Sea, they found a field under the Caspian Sea, 20 to 50 billion barrels of oil. I mean, we're not even talking about coal and other kinds of resources. I'm trying to tell people, my brother, who passed away regrettably, but was a very high-level executive for Sun Oil Company. And I remember back in 1973, we had huge lines at the gas stations. You'll remember they had what they call the Arab oil embargo of the United States. Mm-hmm. And the price of gasoline went up from about 40 cents to $1. Of course, that looks cheap now, a gallon. But I remember my brother complaining that he was having a hard time finding places to store the oil. Sun Oil Company, and I said, what do you mean? And he laughed and he said, well, we have so much oil we don't know what to do with it all. He said the tankers are still coming, they're full of oil, and yet the oil industry, we're telling everybody that we're short of oil with this embargo, but the truth is it's my job to go out and find places to store oil. We're brimming over with oil. We don't have enough places to even store it. We've got so much oil. In other words, they were lying out of both sides of their mouth to people, and this is what they do. And by the way, here's another little scam. Your listeners need to understand something. Such environmental groups as the Nature Conservancy, the Sierra Club, Greenpeace, and all the others, they didn't just jump up overnight out of nothing. They were all created by the oil industry.
Hey, Texe, I want to ask you about those particular groups because I want to get into food and water as well, and I want you to finish that point, but I want to also segue into land as well with these groups because going back several decades, we've seen major changes with our national parks, and I know that you've looked at it. You know, people kind of think that that's ours, but if the country goes bankrupt, that could be owned by a foreign corporation the way they have delegated out those that are upkeeping the park. And so when you look at the UN Biosphere Act, a lot of people aren't even aware that that's actually in place or what that is. So how does that also relate to what we're saying now?
Well, first of all, remember that in all of the national lands of the United States, and by the way, if you looked at a map, you would be amazed because I would say that a good 50% of all the land in the United States is owned by the government. Okay? Now, this land, much of it is placed off limits to American citizens. For example, Bill Clinton pulled a Shruti and put millions of acres in Utah, Colorado, off limits to Americans by calling it a national wilderness. And who gets this national wilderness? Well, since it's kept off limits to America, then what they're going to do, what their plan is to give sweetheart deal contracts to huge multinational corporations. For example, in the United States, we now have this super highway, NAFTA superhighway, it's called, the Trans-American Corridor, being built from Mexico up through Texas, Oklahoma, all the way up through Minnesota into Canada. But the highway is not even owned by Texans. In fact, I'm right here in Texas, and we're fighting this highway, but we can't do any good because our governor his pockets are full of cash. Bribes paid him, Governor Rick Perry, by the Bilderbergers.
Yes, and we can see that they're not really all that concerned about taking care of the wilderness, which is something that we actually do care about. They seem to have set out for themselves for them to pave later on for their highway. That's what's taking place right now. I-69 is being created to be a part of the NAFTA superhighway, and they're clearing forest land right now as I speak to make space for that.
Oh, yes. I talked to some people up around Taft, Oklahoma. They have the Elk Reserve there of oil, and they have an incredible amount of oil there in California. And but there's some shrewd things going on there. So multinational corporations are beginning to get licenses to go in there and take out oil and take other resources of Americans. Here's another thing. You have people like Maurice Strong, who was former head of the United Nations Environmental Program, and the billionaire named T. Boone Pickens and others, and these Illuminati chieftains are buying up water rights underground. Now, see, you may be living, your home may be in El Paso, Texas, or in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and what you don't know is that some billionaire Illuminati elitist owns the water rights under the earth. And for example, T. Boone Pickens owns water rights under about 3 or 4 states. Now, why have they gone in there and why has our government allowed these people to buy all the water underground?
Hey,
well, they're going to build pipelines, a network of pipelines throughout the United States, and start selling everybody water. And I'm talking about the water corporations that are owned by the Illuminati elite. Listen to me very carefully. If you think you're paying high price for water now, watch out. I think water, you go to a 7-Eleven store and buy a bottle of water now, and it's about $1 and a dime. You wait and see. It'll be $3 to $5 for a little bottle of water, and they'll tell you you can no longer water your lawn. They're going to triple, quadruple the rates of water. They're going to sell all the water rights in America to multinational corporations. I mean, these people are squeezing the common people, and what they're telling them is, I'm so sorry, it's an age of scarcity. You're going to have to put up with high prices for water, for food, for the basics, for oil, for gasoline. It's a scam. It's a lie, and they're cooking the books, and they're stealing it all from us. Hey, do you know what, Alex? I'll tell you who owns all the water that's underground and all the reservoirs. It's the American people. I'll tell you who owns all the oil off our coast. It's not the oil companies. It's not the multinationals. It's not ExxonMobil. That oil is owned by the American people. And we are allowing these huge multinational corporations to be given free right to our oil. And they've already pushed all the small farmers out of business, and now corporations control agribusiness. And as soon as they've done it, guess what? Now they're driving up the price of food. Once there was no small farmers, and the big corporations owned all the farmland, suddenly they said, sorry, we don't have enough commodities, enough food, enough rice, enough wheat, corn, and they're driving up the price. And I'm telling you, we're going to have to do something in America. And the first thing to do is do not go along with the lie. When they tell you we're running out of food, look them in the face and say, you're a filthy liar. We've got plenty of food, and you better open up the warehouses, and you better give back the land to the people. And I think that's what we need to do. We're going to have to start demanding that America be given back. This is our country. It doesn't belong to Centra Group from Spain or some Australian multinational or ExxonMobil. It belongs to the people.
Hey, Tex, let's jump in. Let me give you this headline from AP. It just came out yesterday, and this pertains to what we're talking about, because it doesn't seem that they're very interested in really taking on the real environmental issues, like this one from the AP. Overlooked in the global food crisis, a problem with dirt. Science has provided the souped-up seeds to feed the world through biotechnology and old-fashioned crossbreeding. Now the problem is in the dirt they're planting in. As seeds get better, much of the world's, as they say from the AP, as seeds get better, much of the world's soil is getting worse, and people are going hungry. Scientists say if they can get the word out of the economically triggered global food crisis, better dirt will be at the root of the solution. But they don't really talk about what's causing that, and that's this massive genetically modified monoculture lifestyle that we're living within. So let's talk about Monsanto, because you wrote about this like 6-7 years ago before the mainline environmentalists caught wind of it. The GMO, the death seeds, the oil rapeseed, etc.
Well, yes, I wrote a book. In fact, the book is still available. It's really selling well now, and I can understand why. It's called Days of Hunger, Days of Chaos. When I wrote the book, people didn't understand it. They didn't know what the Terminator gene was that was being implanted in seeds. I warned that huge agribusiness chemical groups like Monsanto now control the rights to all the seeds, and the farmers have to buy the seeds from Monsanto. Now, it's not like the old days where you plant a crop of corn, and then you keep a certain amount of corn back for seed for the next year's crops. Now they don't let you do that. All of the seed is sold by corporations to the big mega farmers. Now, the problem is it's actually programmed. You talk about genetically modified food. I call it Frankenstein foods. It's programmed to die after the first seeding. In other words, you plant the seed is not good but for one crop, and then it dies. It's programmed to die.
No,
They have
wait.
actually programmed seeds
Yes,
of,
yes,
of
yes,
wheat
they are. But
and
if
rice
we,
and all kinds of crops so that it will die automatically. And so this is what they've done to us. And so they own the seeds. Now, I think this is a tremendous problem. And of course, supposedly you get a much better crop. You get higher yield per acre and all those other things.
and the science
But we
keeps
don't
coming
know,
out
you know,
on what it does to us in terms of like the DNA, our DNA being altered, perhaps, because we're dealing with altered DNAs. It's like the old adage text, you are what you eat. Well, if we are what we eat and we're eating seeds that kill themselves after a year, makes you just kind of wonder for just a sec what it's doing to us.
Oh, it does. You know, I have a little dog, a little white dog. We got it at the Humane Society shelter. We really don't know what breed it is, but we like to sit around, you know, and we joke about what breed it might be. Well, we've had this little dog for several years now. We love the little dog, Alex. Well, we went down to, as we, you know, were prone to do, we began to buy it these little treats at the store. But I noticed right away, after just a couple of times, the dog got confused. It would eat these little treats, and they look like, you know, begging strips or whatever they call them. I forget the name of them. You can buy them at the store. But I noticed my dog, about 15 minutes after it eat those things, it would look around, and I mean to tell you, it was confused. It couldn't figure out where to go, where to sit down. Now, that's what this artificial food is doing to my dog. And you know, we've already lost about half of the bees in America. Why? I believe it's this genetically modified food, these seeds, the Terminator. In fact, The Economist magazine once had an article, and I have a picture of that, the cover of the magazine in my book, Days of Hunger, Days of Chaos. They actually at first called this stuff demon seeds. Of course, The Economist doesn't do that anymore because it's such a multi-billion-dollar business. But think about that. They call this stuff demon seeds. I believe it's killing bees. I believe it's killing birds. And I believe it's going to kill a lot of people. But back to this thing about the soil. They say we may not have as much food because the soil is wearing out. And scientists say, when you hear somebody say, scientists say, nowadays you have to say, oh yeah, what scientists? Because it's just like the global warming issue. You know, I mean, they were such liars, all these scientists that have a vested interest in the lie, and their careers and their pocketbooks are concerned. They've got to keep the lie going of the government. They're all paid by the government and the corporations to lie. Now we know there's no such thing as global warming. I have an article here, and you and I both know this, Alex. This is from dailytech.com, March 1st, 2008. All four of the world's largest climate prediction centers, including our own NASA, National Space Administration, and the Hadley Center for Climate Prediction, now say that there is wide-scale global cooling. Every reliable weather monitoring organization now says the world is going into global cooling, and in fact the temperature for the last 100 years does not show warming at all. It shows cooling. So we've been lied to all these years. They wanted us to change our lifestyles, change different kinds of air conditioning systems or get rid of them entirely. And we've had jerks like Bobby Kennedy Jr. who runs around in his private jet, and Al Gore who flies around in 2 or 3 executive jets and owns 6 homes all over the world. And these jerks, these liars, are telling us we're going to have to change our lifestyles and become like the pygmies of South America to stop global warming. And the fact is it doesn't even exist. Scientists say baloney. Scientists say the soils are wearing out. Nonsense. That's an excuse for driving up the price of food. I mean, again, we have an incredible Big Brother lying system. Everyone needs to get the book, George Orwell's 1984, because I'm telling you, these people, they must read that book. It must be their religion, because they're doing everything Big Brother did. But I want to clue people in. There's plenty of water, there's plenty of food, there's plenty of oil, and we've got to get rid of the liars, and we've got to return America to sanity. And this is an age of plenty, but they've locked the keys, and they're locking the warehouses, they're locking the oil up. One of the things they do is to create environmental organizations. Now, the unwashed masses believe these lies, and they run down and join groups like Sierra Club and Nature Conservancy. What they don't know is they're being used as a bunch of barefoot peons by the corporations, because Exxon and Mobil and Shell and British Petroleum, they love the environmental groups. Do you know what happens because they don't build new gasoline refineries in the United States?
They make more money, and they're merging.
They love it. They love it when a bunch of crazies go to California and Santa Barbara and say, we don't want you drilling in the Pacific Ocean. Exxon and all of them say, oh, okay, we won't drill there anymore. We'll just have to keep the price of gasoline up high because y'all won't let us drill there up in Alaska or in Santa Barbara or in the Gulf of Mexico. We're so sorry. If only the environmentalists would let us, we would start building more gasoline refineries. We're so sorry. Then they turn around and give millions of dollars to these environmental leaders. Many of them, by the way, check out their salaries. They get paid hundreds of thousands. There's some of these people getting paid $500,000, $700,000 a year to run an environmental organization. They're getting rich too, and it's to their benefit to lie to us. Every environmental organization I know was founded by corporations.
Texe, I want to ask you something before we let you go in about 10 minutes, and I want to read a couple headlines here, but in the meantime, this is the question I'm going to ask on the other side. With all this information that we've been talking about for some time, so have you, many other people. Some people are starting to see it, but some people aren't. What do you think we could expect in the next year? And I also want to briefly touch upon the topic of mind control. I understand you wrote the book Project Lucid, and there's some interesting things taking place in the political arena, and I'll pick up on that right after these headlines. But this is important because it's in line with what you were talking about in Gulag, USA. We started the show talking about a FEMA camp that they set up in Iowa not too long ago, and it came out in the papers that they were going to have some sort of a drill. They were putting the camp there, some sort of a National Cattle Congress fairgrounds in Waterloo, Ohio, of all places to put people, was where they put cows. And it was involving Homeland Security, FEMA, and ICE. They rounded up 300 illegal immigrants. Now, a lot of people are being told, well, this is to fight illegal immigration. Well, why don't you go to the root of the problem instead of just have this exercise? I think that this is a drill designed to set up a FEMA camp that will be used to process American citizens. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with stopping illegal immigration. However, it does seem to be some sort of a dry run for something bigger in the future. So my first question is, what is your take on that in light of the fact that they're also running drills, running people out of the White House, the executive branch, and that is not including Bush, by the way. We don't know who these senior members are. That came out this week as well. And they also had to have a drill recently in Chicago where only 300 people showed up. They wanted 4,000 people to show up. So they were disappointed. So I guess my question is, what's your take on the camps and why all this control is taking place all at once where we can literally see in front of our face X meeting marking the spot right there?
Okay, well, first of all, you and I both know that neither the Democrats nor the Republicans, not John McCain, not Barack Obama, no one in Congress or the presidency, no one wants to enforce immigration laws, and no one will enforce immigration laws. So if they tell you that they want to establish these so-called camps, okay, which I call the Gulag, if they want to establish camps in Portland or Austin or Iowa, to keep who? They've already said, they laugh at you. They say, we can't start deporting. Why, there's first of all, they tell you there's only 12 million, but Bear Stearns, and by the way, I believe that's one of the reasons they were driven out of business. It was Bear Stearns, one of the largest Wall Street firms, that put out a report 3 years ago that said the government was lying, and there's not 12 million illegal aliens in America. There's 35 million minimum. 35 million. That was Bear Stearns. You want to know why they're the only huge Wall Street financial organization that's been plowed under right now? Hey, there you go. They told the truth about the illegal aliens. There's not 12 million. There's 35 million minimum, and that was 3 years ago. Everybody knows that George W. Bush and Michael Chertoff, Director of Homeland Security, and the next president, John McCain or Barack Obama or whoever, is not interested one flip in rounding up illegal aliens and putting them in camps. That is the silliest thing in the world. They're not interested in doing anything but bringing.
So what do you think they are? What do you think they are doing then with those camps there?
Well, they're going to give us a North American Union within a couple of years that won't even have a border. So what is this stuff about we need camps for illegal aliens? The camps are for citizens. The camps are for dissidents because they know that they're going to crush us by denying us water and food and gasoline and travel. They're going to take away our homes. They're going to crush this economy. And then there's going to be rioting and angry American citizens, not illegal aliens. I'm talking about white and black and Latin Americans.
You have 2 minutes remaining.
We're the ones they're going to put in the camps. This is baloney. They're not interested in putting Juan Gonzalez from Guadalajara in a camp in Iowa or Portland or anywhere. Those camps are for American citizens. And this is the silliest thing in the world. And by the way, you're right about that. I mean, even 6 years ago, they gave a $400 million contract to Halliburton's KBR subsidiary to build FEMA camps. And by the way...
Hey, Texe, we got about a minute left.
Okay.
I just wanted to get your website out there, though, real quick. Maybe we can do this again in the future, because there's clearly a lot of things that we do need to discuss. Maybe we could set that up in a couple months from now and do a follow-up to this interview, if that works for you.
I want to tell you how much I appreciate your courage and broaching these issues, because so many people are frightened to death right now of Big Brother.
Well, your websites, we have TexeMars.com, PowerOfProphecy.com, and they can listen to, I guess, your shortwave radio show on that particular website, right?
But they absolutely can, 24/7, PowerOfProphecy.com. And by the way, we have hundreds of free articles as well for them to read.
Well, thank you, Texe, and we'll talk again in the near future.
Hey, thank you, my good friend.